Good afternoon, everyone. This is the last webinar in this automation series, and it's about template reporting. I have a short presentation. I will talk about template reports. We'll talk about how to use them in desktop. That is possible since pdfToolbox 7.2, and how to use them in server/command line. We'll talk about the architecture of a template report. How is it made? What are the different parts? How can you create a new one? Changing look and feel, and then a few more interesting things. As my title slide already seemed to imply, there is more to this, I believe, than simply reporting. Calling this customizable reports is not doing the feature enough value. There is actually a lot more that you can do with that. And I have two examples, one that you might already have seen if you watched the 7.2 update webinar, but another one that I've made for a project in the meantime that I hope shows some of the power that you have in this template reporting. So first of all, perhaps, what is it? Well, a template report is a new form of report that was implemented in pdfToolbox 7. It was one of the features in the major V7 upgrade. And by default, it looks like what you see on screen. So it has a little preview of the file that was pre-flighted. It has a very visual overview of the errors and warnings in the document, and then some other information. But of course, the fact that it's a template report or a customizable report indicates that it's changeable. And that means I could very easily get a report that looks a little bit different, like the one I have on screen now. And then how do you use that? Well, you can use them, as I said, in desktop and in server. And instead of going through these slides, what I'm going to do is simply show that to you in the software. So what I need is a file. And actually, I'm not going to use that file yet. Let me take a demo file for this, open that up, and if I now choose a very quick pdfX1A verification, then it tells me no problems found, and I'm going to go to create report. Now, as of pdfToolbox 7, the create report dialog looks a little bit different. You can see that it has been reorganized to some extent. You have a section where you choose the format of report. PDF report is the old report format that you already know, with annotations or layers or these transparent masks. You can see the settings underneath. PDF report custom is a new template report, and then I still have XML and text report that I can generate as well, of course. So what I'm going to do here is select PDF report custom. And then I have a section at the very bottom that shows me the different templates that I have installed on this system. And we'll see what the Penguin report is, and simply save that on my desktop. It takes a few seconds, and then I end up with a file. You can already see it open in pdfToolbox itself. So this is a report where all of a sudden you have this penguin image. So it's already a customized template. Some of the text is different than what is in the default report included with pdfToolbox. Then you can see the rest of the information. There are no errors and warnings here, so that section is empty. I simply have the document information and the environment information in this report. Now, that's how you use it in pdfToolbox desktop. It is actually just as easy in pdfToolbox server, where you can simply select this new type of reporting. And in the command line, if you refer to the presentation for this webinar afterwards, you'll see an example of how to generate this on the command line. Now, what I want to do here is show you how you could create a new template report. Then we'll look at the different bits and pieces in there and how the architecture of that report works. I'm going to close the report, and I'm actually going to once again say analyze. So I'm running the same pre-flight. I'm going into the create report dialog again, and next to the spot where I can select which template to use, you have a browse button, and that will actually open up the folder where all of the templates are stored. So let me hide pdfToolbox for a second. This is the folder that was opened by that browse button. You can see that this is stored in your library, and then preferences, Scala software preferences. And each of these folders that you have here in that folder is a template. The default is called overview. So the other ones are the ones that I created. Now, how do you go about making a new template? And please don't change the existing template if you can avoid it. You can, but then make a copy of the built-in one so that if you break something, you have a correct template to refer to. Simply take this overview that is always installed, and let's see if we can duplicate that one. That gives me a new folder. I'll give it a different name. The name that we give to the folder is not important. When I go into that folder, you'll see a manifest XML file, and in that file is the name of the report as it appears on the user interface in pdfToolbox. So what I need to do is open this with a text editor. This is an XML file, so you can use whatever XML editor you want to use. In this case, I'm just opening it in TextMate. What you can see in there is a relatively simple XML file, and the part that interests me right now is this part here, the display name. Now, this dictionary has to do with localization of the Callas product, so I can remove that because I'm making my own template. And then I have PDF report overview. What I can do here is say webinar demo template. And what I type here is the actual name of that template report as it will appear in the user interface. So close this, save, and now if I go back to pdfToolbox and we say create report, we see the webinar demo template appear in here. Of course, it's now going to do exactly what the PDF report overview does, because we simply copied what was already there, but that's the way you can make your own copy of a template and then start to modify that afterwards. How do we modify it? Well, if you want to know how to modify it, then it's important to understand what all of these things are. And let me go back to the presentation for a second. And then we talk about the architecture of this new template report. And the most important bit to know is that it's based on an HTML to PDF conversion. This template folder that you see here contains all of the files necessary to create a good HTML file. That HTML file with all of the information in it, and part of it will be generated dynamically, and I'll explain it in a second. Part of it is just a simple HTML. That HTML file is converted by a built-in HTML to PDF converter. That's a library that is built into pdfToolbox 7, and that gives you that PDF file that we already saw. Now, the fact that this is built on HTML, including things like CSS and support for JavaScript, is very important because that gives you a very easy to customize environment. There are a lot of people that know how to write good HTML, that know how to work with CSS and JavaScript, and actually you're working with standard HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. The library is built on top of a WebKit environment, so it's using the WebKit technology to interpret the HTML and then do a conversion to a PDF file. And there are some special things in this library to make sure that you can create good PDF. This is a library that it's the first time that it's used in pdfToolbox for this template reporting. It will not be the last time. There are a number of other features where this library will be used in subsequent updates and coming updates for pdfToolbox 7 and then the next versions of pdfToolbox. You can imagine that having a library that on the fly can convert HTML to PDF and then merge PDF content with what you already have in a document, that this is a very powerful concept. and one that will be used in a number of different places in the product. Now, that manifest file that we already opened is also a very important part. It is the manifest file that talks to pdfToolbox, the engine that has done pre-flight and now is going to generate the report. And using that manifest, you can communicate with the pdfToolbox engine and can request a number of pieces of information to be supplied. And we'll come back to that a little bit later. What are all of the other bits and pieces? Well, you have a little bit of an overview here. Of course, the most important part of the root part of the whole process is this index.html file, which is a simple HTML file. If I open that up in preview, I can see more or less how the report looked like. You can see that there is a lot of information missing that is added on the fly, of course. But this is the HTML file that will be converted. I have a folder in here that contains CSS. Again, this is standard CSS that supports a lot of the CSS 3 features in there. You can already see some of them here. For example, page definition. I can see web fonts being used here. So it's a standard CSS file. I have a folder where I can put all of the fonts. You could name this folder differently as well. It's referred by the CSS, so whatever you do in the CSS is okay. I have a folder with images, which strangely enough contains PNG and PDF images, and we'll come back to that. And I have a folder called scripts, and that's an important one. These are Java scripts that play a very important role. I will open these two in TextMate for just a second, and then you can see that there are two files. One is called calasoverview.js. That's a file with a bunch of support functions that are used while creating that PDF file. And this is a good one to look at if you're interested in making your own templates, because a lot of the techniques that you can use in your own templates are actually shown very nicely in this one. And then you have a calasparams.js, and that only contains a bunch of globally defined variables. And these variables are automatically set every time a pre-flight is done. To take one step back, if I do pre-flight of a file, then pdfToolbox will perform the pre-flight. It will copy this whole folder that you have here with your templates, and then it will rewrite this JavaScript with all of the variables, and it will insert all of the information it knows about the pre-flight, about the file, and so on. Your JavaScript or your HTML file can then refer to those parameters, and because the folder was copied and pdfToolbox wrote this updated file with the actual value for the variables in there, your JavaScript and your HTML file will get the actual values that are used during this pre-flight. And that is why here I see an HTML file that doesn't contain any additional information in it. But if I generate the report, that HTML file will now pull the information out of those variables. And let me open up that index file in a text editor that will show you what I mean. So again, this is standard HTML. There is nothing strange going on here. I'm importing some of these script files. I'm importing that CSS file. You could import others, and you'll see an example of a template where this looks very different. And then there is a body piece to the HTML, some initialization going on, and a number of, for example, here you have this one example of a variable that is being used. So this is one of those variables that is dynamically inserted into that JavaScript file each time a pre-flight is done. I said I was going to come back to this, and you might have noticed what is going on here. For example, I have a toolbox logo. I have a Calas logo that is included in the CSS. This is not in the HTML, rather. This is not really standard HTML anymore. Here I do something that goes a little bit beyond that. The reason is that when I use this library that Calas incorporated into pdfToolbox 7, not only can I use images in my HTML file, but I can actually refer to PDF files. And the content of this PDF file, in this case, it's a Calas logo. So if we go to the image folder and we look at a file called Calas logo.pdf, then this is a standard PDF file. Well, that PDF file will be merged with the PDF for the report that is generated. And that shows some of the additional power that you have in this library already. Now, I don't want to go through all of the details of this HTML file. Suffice it to say that this is, like I said, a standard HTML file where some of these variables are used, where PNG and PDF files will be used, and so on. And it's, well, it's not that long, but it generates that template that you've seen. Now, what can I do in this webinar demo templates? I could limit myself to changing the appearance of a template report. And there are two simple ways of doing that. Either I change information in here. I could, for example, say that a report isn't very clear. I want this to be pre-flight report. That as soon as I change this, I'll have other text in that report. I could also decide that there is way too much information in here. I have all of this document information. This only confuses my users, and I have this environment information that as well. So I could simply throw that out. Probably I don't need the horizontal rule anymore. This is commented out anyway. So I can throw out everything that I don't want in there, or simply start including other HTML code, or by opening up the CSS file, changing some of the colors that are used here, or similar things. If you have experience with HTML and CSS, this is all very familiar, and I don't need to give much more information than that. So copy the whole folder with from an existing templates, open up the manifest XML file to change the name that will be shown in the user interface, and then simply go do the changes that you want. What is the purpose of these PNG files if the PDF files are the ones that are being used? It's a very good question. There is none. You could very nicely throw them away. There is some cleanup that you can do in this template to make it a little bit smaller. It contains a bit more information than you need, simply because it also gives you pointers on how you can implement things. But very specifically here, the PNG file is not used. It is, when talking about these images, it will be the Calas logo.pdf file that is used to generate a PDF file. So this one could be thrown away. One other thing, when I said that the file will be copied, the template will be copied each time a pre-flight is done, and then these variables are created dynamically. That is not the only information that is created dynamically. You can see this folder here, Calas Pages. That folder is also recreated dynamically, and you can ask in the manifest file, you can ask pdfToolbox to generate a preview of certain pages in that folder. And I'll have an example of that in just a second. So it's not just the JavaScript that is dynamically created. There are some other bits and pieces where you can use pdfToolbox to get information for them. What I've shown so far kind of points to the fact that this is in fact a customizable template. And then what would be good about that, of course, is that it's no custom language. It's not like the imposition in pdfToolbox where there is a proprietary scripting language that you have to learn. No, this is standard HTML and CSS. But if this was where it stopped, then I wouldn't be very excited about it. Not even if you have the JavaScript that allows you to do some stuff. There is actually more that you can do. And the manifest is the key to implementing that additional stuff. What you see is that in many different workflows, you have different needs. People want different information out of a PDF document because they want to use that in a report, but everyone is different. And what you don't want to do is insert all possible information into a template. Generating one of those reports already takes a bit of time. So you don't want to make that process slower than it actually should be. So the information that ends up in this parameter file is limited. Now, what happens if you want more information and if you want to do something that is totally different than the built-in reports? Well, then you can use this manifest XML to request more information. Now, how does that work? Well, there is already a file that contains a lot of information about a document, and that's an XML report. If you use pdfToolbox and you generate an XML report from a pre-flight, then that XML report is filled with information about the document itself, about the pre-flight that was done, so all of the errors and warnings and information about that, a lot of information about the profile that was used. So all of that information is already there. And rather than reinventing the wheel, what is done here is use that XML information and making it available during pre-flight. How does that work? Well, there are a couple of steps that happen when you generate a pre-flight report. First of all, you can use the manifest to instruct pdfToolbox to also generate an XML report. pdfToolbox will then do its pre-flight. It will write out an XML file in a specific location inside that copied template folder that it already copied. So it copies that template to a temporary location, generates the XML report, puts the XML report somewhere in here, and then your template JavaScript, and through JavaScript, your template HTML file can use the information from the XML report to further customize what happens. Now, this sounds very, very complicated, and actually, if you know how it's done, it is not that complicated at all. So let me show you how that works. I need pdfToolbox. Well, first of all, I'll just use this file again. That should still work. And in this case, I can just use analyze, create report. I want a template report, and I don't want penguins this time. I'm going to use something that is called a sign-off sheet. The name is a little bit misleading for what it actually does, but it was the start of a project, and I'm going to generate that on my desktop. So this is another template report, and I'm going to open it up in Acrobat. And in this case, the template report looks totally different. I have an A4, I believe, file. On that file, I have a much larger preview of the document, and under that it says the size of this document is this many by this many millimeter, and then it gives you some information about ink coverage. And it's actually not ink coverage in the sense of how much percent of ink in each spot. This actually calculates total area covered by each ink. So this document contains cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and then a spot color called Pantone 220C, and it uses 25 square centimeters of cyan, 31 square centimeters of magenta, and so on. So this does something that is totally unrelated to the pre-flight profile that I used. The pre-flight profile was a PDFX1A pre-flight profile, but the information I get out of here is simply the width and height of the trim box, and then the total area coverage for each of the inks in the document. So this is something totally different, and this is information that is not included by default in the pre-flight report. So how do we do this? I come back to my folder with all of these templates. If I go into sign off, the first thing I need to do is show you what was done in the manifest file. And in the manifest file, there are a couple of changes when you compare this to what is in the standard one. First of all, I've added this line, keep temp. And what that does is instruct pdfToolbox to keep that temporary folder that it creates while it generates the template report. And actually, if you look at my desktop here, under the PDF file that it created is a folder that looks almost exactly the same as the template folder itself, but this is the folder that was created by pdfToolbox during pre-flight. So the temporary information. In that folder, if I look at the parameter file, for example, you'll see that now all of the variables have gotten the correct values. So if you ever want to see where it goes wrong when you generate your own templates, and believe me, it will go wrong, well, the first thing to do is to insert this line under settings, keep temp, and that will make sure that you get this folder and you can investigate what was done by pdfToolbox during the pre-flight step. That will help a lot in debugging what goes wrong. You can also open up this HTML file, and that is also helpful because if you open up that HTML file and you look at the JavaScript errors that you get, it will actually show you the error messages that are there if there are JavaScript errors. So simply open it up in a browser and look at the JavaScript console, and that also helps you in figuring out what went wrong. Now, the other change I have here is that under results, I ask pdfToolbox to generate two things. The first line says generate an XML report, and it gives a path for that, XML/report.xml. So if we go look in that temporary folder, then I have a folder called XML, and under that I have a file called report.xml, and that is the XML report as it is generated by pdfToolbox. Again, this is very useful while you're writing the template because this gives you the exact XML report that pdfToolbox has generated, and it will show you exactly what the information is that you're trying to get to. And then the second line here asks pdfToolbox to generate a preview of the first page of the document at a resolution of 150 dpi. By default, in the default template, the resolution is much lower. That's because there is only a small thumbnail included in that report. I wanted to show something which is much larger on an A4, so I increased the resolution that is used here as well. So that's the manifest and what happens in the manifest. And then how does the rest of the stuff work? Well, I've added an XML report JavaScript, or rather this was an example that I got and I actually changed it in this case. And this, and I will share some of these examples afterwards, this actually contains a lot of the support code to get to the information in this XML report. So what you see here, for example, is that I have a support function, a JavaScript function, that depending on what my environment is, will do an open call on the XML report. And as a response, I get the root element of that XML report file. And once you have the root element of that report, you can do things like getting the page or a particular page in that XML report. And for that, it's simply a XPath instruction to look in a specific location in that file. Again, you have that XML file. So if you also open that up in text editor, you can see what is going on here. I'm looking at report document pages. So basically, I'm looking at report documents, and then under the pages tree, I'm looking for a page with ID. Number is actually what is used here, I think. Yep, page number. So I look for a page where there is an attribute number equals 1. So the fact that you have access to that root element in the XML file allows you to get to any piece of information that is available in the XML report. And because in the XML report, and that's also something that you can specify in the manifest file, because in an XML report, you can ask for the total area coverage of each ink that is used on a particular page in a document, that gives you the information that you need to look at a page and then, for example, get the ink coverage for that particular page. But it's not restricted, of course, to height and width of a trim box or another box in here. It's not restricted to ink usage in the document. All information that is available in that XML report is accessible, and you can be as creative as you want. To show that, let me give you one last example of this, and that will be this analysis file. And here I've done actually something a little bit different. If I open up this HTML file, you'll see that it's much smaller. I've basically thrown everything out, and I only have totally different HTML and JavaScript code in here. I also inserted an additional scripting file in here, JavaScript file, and that JavaScript file again allows me to work with the XML report that is generated. And then there are some support functions, in this case to get page dimensions, and there is some magic going on here. And then I also, in this case, look for the result of a specific pre-flight check. And it's a relatively simple example. I will use a pre-flight profile that contains only one check in it, and I'm actually interested in the result of that check. So I get that out and I use that result in my HTML file. So what does it do? Close this and actually use this test file. This is a test file that contains some black pages, some color pages. It also contains a lot of different page formats. And one of the questions I got from someone was, is there a way in pdfToolbox to pre-flight a file and know what the different page formats are that are used, and how many of the pages are black and white and how many of the pages are color. Now, some of that can be gotten out of the pre-flight report. You can write pre-flight checks and then manually inspect the results and see what that would give. But that's not very user-friendly. If you want to generate a PDF file that has the answer to those two questions, then up until pdfToolbox 6, that would have involved generating probably an XML report and then do a bunch of scripting in another application or a shell script to look at that XML report and do all kinds of analysis. In pdfToolbox 7 with the template report, you have a cleaner way of doing that. And what I will do now is run this analyze pages, check and fix. It's a variable profile that isn't used in this particular example, but I simply used a variable check to check for the minimum ink amount per plate. And I'm going to generate this on my desktop. Runs through the document. This will do a number of things. There is some color conversion going on here to deal with calibrated RGB black. And then it generates a pre-flight error. Like I said, there is one pre-flight check in there to distinguish black and color pages. You can see that there is nothing in here about the actual page formats, because the page format of all of the boxes is already included in the XML report anyway, so I don't need to include additional pre-flight checks. And now when I go to create report, what we'll do is create a custom report, and I will use page analysis for that. That again is going to take a second, and then afterwards I get this file. So again, this is something that looks nothing like a traditional pre-flight report. I started from a blank, I believe it's an A4 page, but I'm not sure. I've started from a blank page. I've added a heading for color information, a heading for page size summary, and some CSS code to give that some color. And there is a line that says number of black pages is X, and the number of color pages is something else. The total should be 23, which is good, because I would expect pages to have either color or not. And then the number of different page dimensions, and I get a list of all of the different page dimensions in the file, even with some rounding going on, because that was something that was asked for as well. And you simply get an overview of the different page sizes in the document, each time with how many pages are used. And if I count all of those together, it also gives me 23, which makes me happy. So this was a very specific question that was asked, and rather than do a bunch of scripting, I decided to simply create a new report. And of course, these can be automatically created in Server or in with the CLI, and that new report gives me exactly the type of information that for this particular project I was looking for. And if you look at the index file for that, at the HTML file for that, it is actually not that difficult. Setting up some of the environments, and then you basically have some of these functions that get information out of the pre-flight report and that write that to the document. That's all I do. I have some document write functions. So everything that you can do in standard JavaScript, HTML, and CSS is actually usable here. And this piece of JavaScript simply writes the document with information that comes out that XML report. It's still work, of course, and you still have to write some scripting, but it is standard JavaScript where you'll find many people that are familiar with that. And once you have some of these example functions to search in the XML report, a lot of the work actually comes down to how do you want to format the information, and there you have a full HTML and CSS engine that can do the job. And it comes down to writing the correct XPath instructions to find the information you are looking for in the template report. That's a simple example. Like I said, I can share this with you so that you can look at this and perhaps start a new template from this and reuse some of the functionality that we have done in here. But it shows you very well, I believe, that this is a little bit more than simply customizing the look and feel of a template report. It actually allows you to get much more of this stuff. Okay, let me return just for a second to the presentation. This is the last thing that I wanted to say about this. So I'll look at the questions in a second, but in summary, you have this new report format that is based on HTML and a conversion from HTML to PDF. It is usable starting with pdfToolbox 7.2, so you really need the 7.2 version to do this. It is usable in desktop and in server or command line on all platforms. There is an architecture where you take HTML plus CSS and JavaScript, and where that gets dynamically converted into PDF. You can of course use this to do the obvious thing and change the look and feel of a report as it is generated, as I've shown with some of the simple changes, color changes, text changes, logos, and so on. But you can also go much further than that, and you can look at this or start to think about this as a tool where you can do analysis that perhaps is not possible in a standard pre-flight, where you have to combine different pieces of information. And the fact that you have this JavaScript engine in there allows you to very quickly write these types of modifications. That's a good summary. Download 7.2 if you haven't done that yet. Look at what the built-in template does. Try around with changing some of these things and see how it can be done in server. Like I said, in server and CLI, there is a slide in my presentation that shows what the correct way is to do this. So it's simply another report parameter that you add to the command line, where you specify template as the type of report, and where you specify the path, the full path to the folder where that template lives. So not the index file, but you specify the path to the folder where that lives. We look at the questions here. Can I stop right before the PDF generation and use the HTML created to be implemented into a website? The answer is yes and no, of course. The answer is no. The PDF will always be generated. At the same time, I've shown you already that if you look at this manifest file, and in that manifest file you have keep temp set to true, that pdfToolbox will then generate the PDF, and it will also generate that folder with all of the information. So you actually do have the HTML file there. If you would integrate this into a script where you say generate this report for me, you set keep temp to true, then you'll get access to that HTML in that way. Of course, you will then be responsible for cleaning up that folder once you've used it. But it is a way to actually use that HTML file. So if you want to go back to any of the previous webinars about the server itself or the CLI or imposition, that were the last 3 that we've done, all of those have been recorded and are already on the website. If that leaves you with questions, don't hesitate. Simply send an email to support@4ps.com or support@kalasoftware.com. That both of those actually end up with us, and we'll be happy to help you with that. You're very welcome to experiment with this yourself and to implement templates yourself. If you feel that this is not something you want to do yourself and want to get help with, we definitely have partners to help you with actual implementations. Professional services is something that we offer. It's also something that many of our partners offer, and depending on where you are, we'll either talk about doing a project with you or we'll refer you to a partner that is local to where you are, for example, to do this. Are there examples of where previews for more pages are shown? I actually don't have an example of that here, but if you look at the standard template, so it is the built-in template in pdfToolbox, you'll see how the HTML in that standard template refers to. Let me see if I can show that real quickly. All of those are changed, but I think this one has the information we're looking for. So this is the index.html file, and then you again have a variable that defines where that image is that is generated. In this case, it looks at the first page. In good programming habits, the first page is called 0, of course. This looks at the first page, so if you generate the previews for multiple pages, then you can refer to those simply by changing that index number that you have in there. Thank you for attending. Thank you very much for many of you to attend all 4 of these automation webinars. I hope they were interesting. We are definitely interested in doing more of these specific webinars about specific topics. So if there are things that you would like to see explained in a little bit more detail in pdfToolbox, then by all means send me a short email and I will be happy to look at that. One of the things that should be coming relatively soon is a number of webinars about a new product, but that uses pdfToolbox inside, and that is a product called FileTrain from Laidback Solutions, which is an automation product where you can automate pdfToolbox, but where you can also do a number of other things around pdfToolbox. So that is something that will be coming, but we'll keep you informed of that when we know when it will be. Thank you very much. Have a great day. If you have any remaining questions, shoot me an email. Thank you very much.